Yuck, yuck.
So funny.
All right. Now we're going to get this going.
Hello.
It is
I heard
time,
that.
smutters.
It's time.
Welcome to Sibs Read Smut Podcast. I'm Ned.
Smut. I'm Helen.
Smut. This is a podcast where we read, rate, review, all and tell jokes, all while discussing your, but mainly our favorite romance books. If you have suggestions, questions, or just want to spread the love, hit us up on the socials, Instagram, TikTok at Sibs Read Smut, or on the emails if you want to be old like me, and at sibsreadsmut@gmail.com. On today's podcast, we will be discussing Book Lovers by Emily Henry. It is
So
fun.
good.
The spoiler alert, we will be talking about these books in full. Beginnings, endings, twists, all fair game. So if you haven't read the book, hit pause, go listen, come on back. We're not going to wait. Helen.
I will wait. I want you to read this one. For my book club friends that tell me they listen to the podcast first to see if they should actually read the book, don't do that. Go read this book. This is such a good book. Don't let us spoil it for you. Seriously.
It is a good book.
Go read it first.
But on the smut level, it is smutometer.
Oh yeah.
It is low. But
let me describe it to you first.
Yes. Helen will now give you a brief description of this book that she wrote all by herself.
Yeah, I've never read this before. Okay. All right. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. All right. Nora is a shark of a book agent in New York. She believes she's cursed in love due to 4 separate relationships ending because her partners moved to small towns and found the loves of their lives straight out of a romance book. Yuck. Charlie is a no-nonsense book editor and does not make a good first impression upon meeting Nora. Fast forward a couple of years, and Nora happens to meet Charlie again in a small town, and almost immediately they get super horny for each other. But it's probably a bad idea to get involved. Can they get over their issues and start boning? Yeah, they sure can.
Yes, they can.
Yes, they sure can. Yes, good job.
I mean, that's pretty much it. That's
a great explanation. Missing a lot of the nuance. I love Emily Henry. This is my favorite Emily Henry. I haven't read her newest one. There's one that like literally came out weeks ago.
Yeah, I think we have it on the library right now.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah,
but
I have not started yet. All the emotions that swirl up from this book. I'm like, I had to read a couple of action books in between to like separate them out. I was like, I need some action, to kind of separate it.
I just loved it. So how do we rate the tame?
Medium plus, and spicy.
Tame. This was tame.
Yeah.
I mean
only one like open door sex scene, really.
Did you? And don't tell me the name, but did you name it?
I did. I named even the non overtly sexual ones.
You're used to naming like 15 sex scenes in a book, so
I know.
Didn't have to just name one. Would be
in this one. I have highlighted, I think, six different instances of general horniness, but yeah, it was, let's start it off, from the beginning. Good cover. I mean, I enjoyed the cover on this. It's my classic cartoony cover.
Cartoony boy girl sitting, passing books back and forth.
Handing covers. It doesn't need to be boy girl. I mean, there's some cool covers of 2 dudes, like the Duke Scandal or whatever it is, where they can be cool covers too. I just don't like the
real life covers,
the unattainable male forms on the covers of some of these.
You'd rather compare yourself to a cartoon drawing than some deep cut abs.
And this book too is unique in another interesting way from books that we normally read too. Not only is it tame, but it is also single perspective.
That stood out to me.
The only other book that we've read that was single perspective was 50 Shades, and this is a far cry from that in tone and general perspective of the
self-awareness.
Yeah. And Emily Henry just in general can really paint a scene with words. It was, she really got you to these locations and really could, make you feel what the characters were feeling. It's a unique experience around, all around. Not that other authors that we've read don't do that, but she is an expert hand at it for sure.
Dead mom
Trope. Again. I
Dead
know.
mom trope.
You were worried about reading. You were worried about reading too much hockey smut, and like what 8 books we've read have dead moms in them.
Dead parents. I know. And the dead mom in this book really moves the story along. Like, it is the grief and the way that like this dead mom shapes Nora, the main character, and her sister, who pushes the story along quite a bit. But the dead mom really like shapes their story and all of
and shapes their whole backstory and their whole outlook on life and love and everything else. The book starts off with a literal listing of romance book tropes about small towns, which is unique. There's some reviews, not reviews maybe, but some websites online that were talking about how her use of the small town trope and turning it kind of on its head a little bit is pretty unique. And she literally starts off by listing all of these things at the very beginning and weaves it into the story by saying that most of these have happened to our main character, Nora, because she's had 4 separate relationships leave her to move to small towns to be with a hotel owner's daughter and and like a Christmas tree farm owner, like this is literally happening to her in real time.
But she's like the big city shark. Nora's the big city shark that gets left behind because of these tropes. So I thought that was a great perspective on it, because there is always like a big city friend or girlfriend, like somebody who gets left in the big city, but it's because they're an asshole anyway and they're all career oriented, which is essentially what this whole book is about for her. Her sister, do you remember the sister's name? Libby. Thank you. So Libby decides that they need to go to this small town. There's more to it. So Nora is an agent this book agent. And so she initially meets Charlie at a book meeting. Very negative first impression. She's late because she's getting dumped by one of these guys that had like moved to a small town and was like, I met somebody, I'm dumping you. And then she shows up to this meeting with Charlie 6 minutes late and he's like, you're late. And you find out at the end of the book that he was also having a bad day. But in the moment, you're just like, what a dick. And so they like have this meeting that does not go well. They have a bunch of martinis and it's just like, whatever. I want to get the last word in. So then it jumps forward 2 years. And Libby and Nora live in New York City. And Nora does very well for herself. She's a very successful agent. She floats her sister financially quite a bit. And her sister is married to Brendan.
Surreptitiously, though. Like, it comes up throughout the book that she has manufactured a lot of these instances. Like, the whole, just fast forwarding way ahead, but like, it happened in the past before the book. But when Libby got married, she, in process of buying her wedding dress, was like, hey, I found your perfect dress at a discount sale. And she rubbed makeup on the inside, but she went and bought the thing full price at the store and just made it look like she got it at a huge discount. So she's been kind of manufacturing this bubble of safety for Libby for most of their lives. Since
their mom died. So their mom died when Libby was still teenager. And I think
she was 15 or 16 and Libby was Nora was 20.
Nora was 20. And so she immediately like took over as mom of Libby, which is sort of a part of this whole story where Libby's trying to kind of break out from like she just wants a sister. She doesn't want another mom. And so Libby kind of knows that she does this surreptitious stuff.
A little bit.
She's like kind of, but them not communicating, the sisters not communicating is a big part of the story. So one of Nora's books, one of her authors, Dusty something.
Dusty's the author's first name. I forget
Yeah.
her last name.
Has this book that she actually tried to pitch to Charlie at that disaster lunch meeting. Did not go well. So the book then gets published by somebody else, is a huge success. It's a small town romance trope. Movies being made. And it's set in this town called Sunshine Falls. Right? Is that the right name?
Well,
close enough.
I think so. I forgot to write it down.
I know. I'm like, that sounds like a small town. So Libby loves this book and is like, you know what? You and me, sissy, we are going to Sunshine Falls for a month. You're going to take time off of work. We're going to spend time together as sisters. She's pregnant. Libby is pregnant with her third child. And so she kind of frames it as like, I need to get away before I have a third kid and I lose myself again in like motherhood. So Nora agrees to go because she feels like she's losing her sister in some ways. And they go.
The growing apart, I think, like the relationship is not what it was when they were super close. And it's like, but also, they're 10 years or 15 years older than they were. It's like, I was
even
like,
a year before, she said that like they were still, of course, things look different from when they were in their like early to mid 20s. But also, I think it felt more recent than that. Like they still, even though Libby had kids, it wasn't like a kid, non-kid thing because Nora never wants kids. She's obsessed with being an aunt. Like she loves that. So I think it was more recently she felt like Libby was pulling away.
Yeah, but two things before we actually get to Sunshine Falls. At that first meeting with Charlie, he's talking about this book that ended up becoming a huge success, and he hated it. And he didn't hate it. He said this is not her best work, and he's really blunt about his criticism. And as a book editor, it's kind of his job to make these books as good as they can be.
Yeah.
But he is too blunt about it. And Dusty, the author, is very sensitive. And as a shark book agent, Nora is like, I'm not letting you anywhere near Dusty. She is fragile. She needs hand holding. Mm-hmm. You cannot talk to her this way.
Treat her
And he said something along the lines of this book is like a Sarah Glaucon commercial where all the puppies die in the end. And I was like, he thinks it's that big of a dumpster fire. And then he ends up passing on it. And she says, I'm never going to work with you. And they go their separate ways. They don't see each other again for 2 years, but he ends up getting a job at her company. Mm-hmm. So he is now a book editor with her company where she is a massive star because of this book's meteoric rise. And so he was proven absolutely incorrect, even though he still sticks to his guns and says, I don't like this book that much.
Snark. Just to comment, like that joke about Sarah, but his jokes too, like they are both the way that Emily Henry writes snark and sarcasm, and like, it is this entire novel. I was cackling. Like there were just like the Sarah McLachlan line. There's lines later where like
she's very dry and she's kind of punchy, and she and her sister go back and forth a lot too, and it's very hysterical.
So good. And we listened to it, but
there's a running joke about buying Bigfoot erotica, which is hysterical, and it runs throughout the entire book.
Yes. But random.
Also, she's telling Libby about her meeting with this jackass of a guy, and that she just got dumped. Yeah. And she's like, I think your dating requirements are a little bit high. And she goes, all I want is a full credit report, a psych eval, and a blood oath.
Yeah. Is that too much to ask?
Right? It's like every guy should just have that in their wallet to just hand over.
But also that's like so exactly what I would say. Like, I don't know, like when you're like sniping with your friends and being funny about like, that's just so dead on. Though the way Emily Henry, chef's kiss, the humor, the snark, the sarcasm, it's so good. So good. You had another point before we get to Sunshine Falls. So carry on with your book report.
No, those were the two funny moments before we get to Sunshine Falls that I wanted to highlight. And also they keep talking about wanting to meet lobster hunters because they're going to North Carolina. They keep talking about lobster hunters, and I'm like, and they also made the mistake of like, is it a horse farm or whatever? And that reminded me of a Done and Dusted where you're like, is she horsing? Is it horsing?
No, they were horsing.
Is she horsing? Oh my god! But they get to this town is where Dusty, the author, based her book, and Libby thinks it's a great idea to go have a whole checklist of stuff to do and live the small town life in the small town to like get them out of their comfort zone and whatever. And she Nora drops Libby off at the murder dead end street, and then they have to walk up all these stairs to their not hotel, but it's like a cabin,
Airbnb, like an Airbnb rental
cabin that they're renting, and she decides to go like scope it out before the sister's laying down or whatever, because remember she's also pregnant at this time.
Scope out the town,
and it is not how Dusty described it in the book. It is not as cute, and there's weird building, there's weird business names, there's all kinds of weird stuff.
The business is phenomenal, like Papa Squat
is the bar restaurant area.
The restaurant, like the spa is the name of the spa, and apparently it was originally named the G Spa, but they had to change the name to just Spa. And hearing them describe it was so funny. He was like, well, the owner's name is Gail, so it just made sense that it was G Spa. She was like, I don't think that's it. And so good. And
very quickly she decides to like go get a drink or I think she was looking for food, maybe. Because when she almost runs into
Charlie.
No, it's not Charlie. She almost runs into
a very handsome man when she opens the door. Shepherd. She like opens the door to this coffee shop, and like this the handsome man from the small town looks like a carpenter, and he is, of course. But
by the way, also smells him. Smell check very early on. She totally sniffs him.
You noticed that shit? I did. That didn't even register. Maybe I smell check people and I just don't even know it, but I probably do. So she like runs into this guy. She meets him later. She doesn't know who he is. She's just this Adonis man, like opening the door. Great. Okay. And then she goes and gets in line at the coffee shop, and she sees this other very handsome man. Then she's like, wait, that kind of looks like Charlie so-and-so. And then she like sneaks around a corner and she emails him, and like he immediately pulls his phone out, checks it, writes back something funny. I think that's where the Bigfoot erotica
this
started.
Is the first instance of the bit. She's like, I have a client that's dabbling in Bigfoot erotica. Do
you want to see it?
Yeah, I think you might be perfect for this project or whatever. And then she sends him a link, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, it's 99 cents. He's like, I'm a grown man, I can buy my own Bigfoot erotica.
It's so
and they start
funny.
bantering back and forth, even though they've had a very contentious relationship for a long time.
And they're like 10 feet apart.
Yeah.
But she's like behind a shelf. I think they don't notice each other at that point, right? Like he doesn't see her. She like runs out of the shop and
it's a mystery as to why he's there for a while. I mean, for I mean, at least another half the book, she's trying to figure out why he. Oh no, not half. I'd say.
Yeah, I think because it's pretty clear.
About a quarter in, you realize that he is from this small town.
Yes, which is why he didn't like Dusty's book. Not why. I mean, one of many reasons. But he was like, she wrote this book, and it's nothing like my hometown. She used my hometown as a backdrop, and the town is obsessed with this book too, which kind of sucks for him because he like passed on it, and then now the town is like a statue going up in the middle of town.
They have signs all over town like this used to be the old Sody shop and all this other kind of stuff.
And he's like, that's not true.
Well, and right after that, we get our first inkling that Nora and Libby are not talking about as much as they need to
sisters.
be, because we find Libby is tired and she starts talking about, oh, they're all on top of each other in their small New York apartment and all this other kind of stuff. And Libby and Nora immediately starts looking for places for her, like immediately gets on realtor websites and starts actively trying to fix her problem. And it comes up later in New York. It comes up later. Well, yeah, duh. That's where they live.
I know.
Helen.
When the book ends.
Yeah, but spoilies, she moves to this small town. Libby, not
what?
Nora.
Yeah.
But
carry on.
But she eventually down the line too makes a bet with Charlie to like take his apartment and be and like, if we can finish our checklist of small town honky tonk things to do, then you need to sublet your apartment to Libby and her family. Like it's very, she's trying the whole time. And
I think as you find out his backstory more, like that, it makes more sense that he is like, so he's in Sunshine Falls because his stepdad had an accident, had a stroke. And so and then his mom is just this big free spirit. They run a bookstore, of course, in Sunshine Falls. And so the mom and the dad can't like handle it anymore. They need help. And his younger sister was going to move home after college. And then she decided instead, another free spirit, to just move to Spain. And then she met a man.
Italy.
And
she's in
Italy. Thank you. And she's like, gonna come back soon, and then gonna come back soon again. And then finally meets a man. Is like, I'm never coming back. So Charlie is really kind of stuck. Like, so at the time he's able to do both jobs. So he's doing his New York job in Sunshine Falls, being an editor, as well as like running the store for his parents most of the time. And so that's I mean, he's got there's a lot more to his family dynamic and how that all goes, but
he really does not, he feels like a fish out of water in this town. He does not fit in. He does not
York
like being here.
Person.
The backstory to his family stuff is that his mom was in love with his stepdad very early on, when they were kids. And then the mom moved away and was in New York for almost a decade and all this other kind of stuff. And when she came back to town, she was already pregnant with him, and the stepdad was engaged to another woman. She ended up getting them to break up, and then got married like a month later, and she was already pregnant and with, this big city slicker's, son, which is Charlie. And so, when the town found out about that, they were not very nice to him. Or
her, or anybody,
or the
sister,
whore and all this other kind of stuff. And so he was ostracized a lot because of that. And school was not a fun time for him, and he was bullied a lot. And so he really does not like this town.
No, he had a tough time growing up.
Why would you?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to go back to the small town list, the list that Libby made.
Did you write it down? I didn't.
No, but it's like go on a date with 2 locals, sleep under the stars, skinny dip, naked, and like all like
fix a business.
Oh yeah, that's kind of like a big one. Yeah, like save a small business in the town, because that's like something that happens a lot in these books. Like, oh, they go and the local inn is going under, and so then they save it. There's all these like things, and so one of my favorite scenes in the entire book. So Libby deems Charlie, because he's like a New York kid, and once Libby realizes that like they're connecting, she's like, Charlie does not count as one of your 2 small town dates. So Libby goes on a dating website as Nora, and sets up a date for her with Blake Carlisle or somebody. Do you remember this?
I don't remember what name it was, but it was Blake.
She goes and meets him at a bar, and he had said on his profile, so she's 5'9", and so the fact that she's tall is like part of her like personality. And so she shows up, and he's also 5'9", if not shorter, and had clearly lied about his height on this dating app. And the whole time, the jokes that are made about like, well, how big are your feet?
How tall are you? What's your shoe size? You don't cook? But it
was all about her height and his insecurity about like, well, could you even reach things on like a tall shelf? And like, he just was that scene was so
He-
great. And then of course Charlie's there and seeing it all.
She says about this that she's describing this. She's describing him as
Blake.
It's Blake as when a mom has to pretend that her new kid's drawing and the hat that she's wearing in the drawing doesn't look like an enormous penis, and she goes, Blake is the penis hat. And I'm like, oh my God, that was. I'm just like, Blake sucks, and Charlie's like, do you have a flirting checklist? She's like, of course I have a flirting checklist.
Yeah.
But back it up. Because
okay, Mr. Book Report, tell me what I missed.
Book Report. Well, we missed two very big things.
Okay.
One being that she's getting super horny for him already.
Charlie.
But Nora is getting super horny for him.
For Charlie.
Yeah.
I'm clarifying.
Yeah, him being Charlie. Yes.
Thank you.
She falls into a poop. On her first run when she leaves the house, she falls into a big pile of horse excrement on the side of the trail that she's running on,
shit.
And she calls it a shit palace, and falls like headlong. She's like ogling shepherd in a field and falls in this enormous pile of poop. That's hysterical. The sisters cut each other's hair, which was wild to me.
Why?
I don't know.
You cut your own hair.
I cut my own hair, but I don't cut other people's hair. The last time I did that, I cut a big Buddha patch out of the back of John's head in college.
Would you like to cut my hair when I come out for Valentine's next year?
I'll shave half your head.
But she dyed it pink. I thought that was so sweet. Yeah. That Libby had always wanted pink hair.
Nora loved her bangs. Libby loved her neon pink hair. Mm-hmm. But I was like, Nora being the control freak that she is, to let somebody else like do that was interesting. And then Libby pees herself in the cab while they're laughing so hard in the back of this cab. And Nora just turns to her and goes, yeah, you peed me too. And which was funny. Then they finally go to Papa Squat for the first time. Mm-hmm. And she gets Dusty's new book. Which that's a big part of the story.
A big moment.
Because
Frigid.
Not only
this is the book title.
Frigid is the book title, but not only is the book phenomenal. I mean, like from the first 10 pages that she read, she's like, wow. But also the main character is eerily like her.
Is her
with a couple of tweaks. But and she is flipping out in the restaurant while Libby's in the bathroom, and she is having like a full-on panic attack and runs into Charlie, which he then reads these pages.
Yeah.
It's like, this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to be huge. And that sets up the whole rest of the book, because they end up writing, he ends up editing the book with her together. And, then they start,
mm-hmm. Mind meld.
For those people at home, I'm twiddling my fingers together sexually.
Yeah. Okay. Uncomfortable for those of us not at home. Okay. Yes. But they start co-editing.
They're co-editing, but that leads to the first instance of
the first named.
No, not named, but they're getting flirty at the bar, and there's intimate knee brushing is what I called it. An intimate knee brushing session. She's like, oh my God, her knees are touching underneath the bar. I can feel every inch of his knee on my knee. It's like
she's building tension.
Sexual tension.
Yeah.
And
this
then they
is
have
like a normal book. This is like what normal
sexy
books
pool
do.
playing session.
Yes, they do. She's of course, she's a shark, not a shark. What a pool shark? What is it called when you your ringer?
Pool shark. Yeah, ringer.
Well,
yeah.
She is like, how do I, push the balls around? And he's like, well, this is how you do it. And he gets behind her and shows her how to set up. And then she's like, really fucking good. Yeah,
rack them.
Yeah, actually, I've done this before.
Yeah, and then they have a she's getting super horny on the walk home in the rain with him, and she's sniffing him on the way home again, we find out that he's sleeping in his childhood race car bed.
Race car bed.
And which comes up a couple of times throughout the book.
It's a joke.
And
That's funny.
And we find out that they wear the same perfume, but it hits different notes on him. They wear the same like
the
unisex
way that
perfume.
The scent stuff stands out to you. This says no. I like loved every detail of this book, and I have no memory of reading about smelling and sniffing.
It smells like more citrusy on him than it does on her. You know. Oh yeah. Huh. It stood out a lot. That leads us to 28%. First spicy first kiss in the rain. Hashtag they real wet. So her phone, I think this is the one instance throughout most of the book that her phone ringing does not
ruin everything.
Stop it. Yeah. And she goes like no or something, and he backs off immediately, and they both like immediately like this was terrible. This was a terrible idea. We can't do this. Yeah. And like we come to find out that Nora like hates love because of Jacob's breakup, her initial boyfriend that moved away to live in a small town, and the mom's bad boyfriends and the mom's death. Like she really, the
death. I think though, like also Jacob sucked, but also you find this out towards like the very end, but she was at Jacob's house when her mom died. And so Libby had been calling and her phone had died. And she was so wrapped up in Jacob and their love and, boning and coitus that like she forgot like her phone died. And she was just so like in the moment that they woke up, they had sex again, they made breakfast, and then she plugs her phone in and sees like missed calls all night from her sister. And so then she realizes her mom dies. And so like their relationship goes on the back burner, but she has carried guilt with her about missing her sister's phone calls. So she now only sleeps with her phone on loud. And
at her own apartment. She never sleeps over anywhere.
She never stays the night anywhere else because she like has this trauma from finding out that her mom had died, which felt just really real. I don't know. Obviously she needs to be in therapy. Like there needs to be like they just there's a little. I think a therapist could have a really nice touch with some of her grief issues, but it felt very real. So I like that. And then Jacob just sucked, and that ended kind of naturally. But
we don't. It's not until Charlie kind of explains it later on where it's like you were always doing things for Jacob, but when you needed something from Jacob, he did not give it to you and moved away and went away and left you holding the bag. And you're like, oh, okay. Because I mean, arguably moving to a small town and finding the love of your life and breaking up with somebody, I mean, while shitty, it's not like earth shattering, but as but being a bad partner in that way of not giving support when you have been supported throughout the entire relationship is kind of shitty. Is the real shitty thing to me, at least. But also, I don't know where this line falls in there. But Nora is talking about Libby's reading preferences, and she's like, every book would end with an earth-shattering orgasm if it were up to Libby. And and there's so much book talk in this, what books they love, and they grew up going and working in a bookshop, in New York. So that was like their safe haven as kids. And on their birthdays and special events, they'd go there and like pick out a book. And Nora worked there for a long time. And so like books, obviously with a title like Book Lovers, books are a pretty substantial part of
and
this.
For him too, like when he was bullied when he was little, like he had a couple teachers that really took him under their wing, and they would give him specific books to read that they thought he'd really be interested in. And his stepdad always tried to like once a month or something would take him to the bookstore and like, let's pick out a book that we'll read together, so that his stepdad stepdad is like macho Mr. Fix-It man. And then like clearly his son, like his stepson technically, but son is like a nerd book kid, and they're just super different. So the dad is so sweet and is like, I just want to be able to relate to you. Let's pick out a book and read it together. And he tells Nora at the end, like, I knew when my son was 14, he picked out some book that I didn't even understand. He was like, that's when I knew that my son was like outgrowing me already, which was really sweet. So I think books played a very significant part in both of their lives, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and there's a lot of atmospherics about this small town too, where I just wrote down there's lots of sweat gathering. It's so muggy and hot in this town, and sometimes it's due to the weather, and sometimes it's just them being super horny for each other. But her descriptions are great. Nora describes Charlie as not wanting him to edit for Dusty. She's like, "You're as delicate as an antique pickaxe," and I was like, I just thought that was a great, just great, like off the cuff kind of descriptor. And then they just moved on. It was one of those like snappy barbs that she just comes up with every now and again. And the blind date, and then of course after the blind date, Charlie takes her out to dinner. They have dinner together, and she as colleagues, and I was like, as colleagues who want a bone,
truly.
But she's getting all horny about how he eats bread, and I'm like, I get it. I'm like,
right after you ask the girl if she likes to fart, you just say like, "Here's the bread basket.
How
do you feel sexy."
How do you feel about farting bread?
Here, eat this breadstick.
Yum yum.
Oh my God, MTV needs to follow you on dates. It's got to be such a disaster.
Oh man. So they're having fun. They're having fun on their date. Secrets are getting shared. Yeah. It's not like a true emotional golden shower like other books that we've read, but like they supply each other with a lot of backstory.
Yeah.
She wanted to be an editor at first. She only got into agenting because she and her sister needed money, so she like kind of gave up on her dream to be an editor. Yeah. And because she would need to take a massive pay cut to do that, and she like needed to support her sister. And then, he got held back in school. He never really fit in. He tells her, Charlie tells Nora about getting bullied and, and his mom and his situation where it's his stepdad, not his real dad, and all this other kind of stuff. And that's when they make the bet about the apartment. If I can finish my list, if we can finish the checklist, then Libby gets your apartment or whatever. And that's when on the way home they go skinny dipping because she's trying to win the apartment now, and so there's some very polite eye fucking when they strip to get in there, and they 46% in immediately start rubbing up on each other in the water, and he gives her an okay nip pinch. It's like okay, and he's like things are complicated for him, but he's about to bone her in the water anyway, and then of course starts like the cascade of phone calls that interrupts their coitus interruptus for the rest of the book. Dusty's calling, and she was supposed to call her back earlier, and Dusty is very needy and needs to talk to Nora when she needs to talk to her, and they're both like, this can't happen again, and run away from each other. Then the next morning she falls in front of Shepard and like throws up and falls in her own throw up or whatever.
She's so hungover from how much she drank the night before. Yeah. That was great.
And she gets her first hot wink from him. I was like, she's like, I just got my first hot wink from a guy. I was like, it's like, okay. I literally was sitting in my chair at my computer. Yeah. I was literally at my computer trying to go, how does it look? For those only listening, we are winking at each other on camera right now
on this children's podcast.
Stop saying that.
That's my favorite thing to say now because you hate it.
We're gonna get flagged by like Homeland Security.
We are already on the no-fly list.
We're already on a lot of lists. And then the call back to the date with Blake. She's talking, which was only the night before, but she's telling Libby how horrible this date was. And she goes, I'm the one cursed with this giant sack of flesh. And or no, I'm the one cursed with this giant flesh sack. And
because she's so tall.
Because she's so
5'9".
tall and her feet are so big. And
I love that date with Blake was my favorite. Having online dated for a long time before I met my husband, some of these guys are just, sorry guys, but I dated some duds.
To all the boys that came before.
To all the boys I never loved. You were a whiny bitch.
You're the problem. The whole problem.
The whole problem.
I just posted that video on the shorts for episode 12. I love that quote.
Problem.
Well, and then comes, I think, one of my favorite scenes in the book, which was the town hall meeting.
That was good.
Where all the town hall, so Libby
very
drags
Gilmore
her.
Girls.
Yeah, Libby drags her to a meet at this town hall meeting. Nora does not know what she's in for, and they're like, "What is going on?" All these two people are yelling at each other, but then when they go to sit down, they're holding hands. It ends up it's a couple that were screaming at each other about business names, and
they have to change the business names because they're so people are like, "That's not inappropriate." They're like, "Yes, it is." It's so good. Have you ever watched Gilmore Girls?
I've seen some of it.
Have you watched the whole thing through?
No, I've not marathoned all of it. Oh, I know. One of the guys from How Did This Get Made, I think, has a Gilmore Girls podcast review.
Yeah,
where they review every podcast or every episode of it.
Yeah.
But I love that. I love that small town.
Yeah.
That small town meeting, and it's a good. It's there while the meeting is happening. Nora and Charlie are in the meeting talking about notes for the book, and it was very well done. The back and forth between their conversation and what's going on in the meeting, and they're getting so wrapped up in talking notes about the book with each other that Charlie's there to vote on something because his mom needs his vote, and so they're so wrapped up in each other that. He forgets to put his hand in the air. So his mom's stomping on the ground, Thelma, get your battery, to put his hand up in the air. And I just love that kind of storytelling device of having two things happening at the same time, but she did it very well where, both things were funny and engaging in their own way happening at the same time. And then, so they're a great editing team together. They're now mid editing this book. They're full on working together, editing Dusty's new book that they both love. And it's and I wrote in my notes, that's when the slow burn of lust starts taking hold. It's already been happening, but for whatever reason, I wrote it about there halfway through my notes. And I just another scene line really, but scene they're locking up the bookstore for the night because he's working in the bookstore, and she's leaving and she's thinking about him being a predator and he's stalking around the thing, always looking at her, stalking around the bookstore, always looking at her, and she ends up running into him on the way out of the bookstore and just screams, "Lion!" And he's like, "What? Lion!" Oh my God, that cracked me up. And just screaming out random things that were in your head and then screaming them out loud. I don't know, for whatever reason, tickles me.
Lamp.
I love Lamp.
Yeah.
And then she ends up going on her date with Shepard, and realizing, as she's about to kiss him, nope, do not like this guy.
He is Charlie's cousin.
Yeah. Whoopsie.
Small town.
Yeah. And Charlie's real weird about her hopping in his car and taking off on a drive. And we find out later it's his cousin, and his ex-fiance broke up with him and started dating Shepard too. So it's a
quickly.
real dick punch right there at the end.
Oh, I forgot that. And yeah, his ex is back in town, is like in town as well. Like
His
she
ex
ended
is the
up.
bartender at Papa Squat.
Oh, that's right. And
Yeah.
she keeps being like, I want to talk to you, to
Yeah.
Charlie. And he's like, okay. And so, of course, this is such like a minor piece of it. But of course, then I feel like the stuff that's keeping the lovers apart is the fact that one, she's only there for a month. And so that's like a big thing is she's going back to New York. And she's kind of assuming at this point that he is too. But that's a big thing. So she's going back and then she sees like she's getting jealous of this ex who's talking to Charlie. So she's like, well, they probably have something else going on.
Yeah. He's seen her as well, even though
Yeah.
they've kind of had like 2 flirty dates and 2 smoking hot kisses.
Yeah. So I feel like there's certain little things where they're like,
well, and she keeps trying to prove that she's not the character from Dusty's book.
Yeah.
Even though the character is clearly based on her. It's pretty evident. And she gets super huffy with him when she, like you were saying, he overhears him talking to his ex on the phone, like setting up a date.
I'll see you tomorrow night or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, and then comes I think maybe my second favorite scene in the book, which is Dusty the author's book Once in a Lifetime is now a play being put on by the theater
By
company
the
in the small town, and the old man Crotchet or whatever is played by like a 14-year-old kid in a fake beard and a cane and everything else, and the sisters
dog
are howling.
The dog of the old man is played by an iguana. They couldn't find a dog to be in this place, so it's like the local iguana. So it's like small town theater, and the sisters are they're pissing themselves. They're like,
they're howling like the quote that she throws out at the end there was, they were howling like preteens high on Mountain Dew, and I was like, that is a perfect.
That is accurate.
Shut up, Skip. We're all hopped up on Mountain Dew.
Chip, I'm gonna come at you like a spider monkey.
We're all hopped up on Mountain Dew. Oh my god, that play. I think the play might be my favorite and then the town hall. I like the structure of the town hall.
Yeah.
But the funniness of the play was pretty fucking great. And then as they're leaving, they're like, oh, come to the salon at Charlie's mom's house. But they're like, we all act like it was great. So just know that like everyone's going to act like this play was great. We all know it's not great, but like everyone acts like it anyway.
You have to pretend it is.
Which I kind of love, like
small town for you, babe.
Small town living.
Yeah.
And that's where we find out more about their relationship and the skewed notion and like revisionist history that they have, where the sister starts recounting their mom's life as hard, and she's downtrodden, she was tired all the time, and Nora's going, no, she was a great mom, like she was always helping us and whatever else.
She created magic.
They have 2 very different views of their past. And that's when we find out Sally, Charlie's mom, was a painter, and she sold them, and she was literally like a star on the rise in New York, and because she has paintings hung up all around her house, and they're like, oh my god, these are great, and she's like, yeah, I was on my way to being a pretty famous painter before I ended up moving back, and refound Charlie's dad, which was interesting, and Libby, sorry, go ahead.
She got knocked up by a.
By the art curator that was trying to make her famous.
Charlie's real dad, his bio dad, was the art curator at an art studio, at an art place. And so I feel like that was, and so she kind of was like, I don't want to start a life with this guy. You kind of don't know like how it really ended, but obviously not well. And she had went back and met and.
Well, and Libby kind of outs that this trip is almost like an intervention for Nora. And she takes it very personally and has like a panic attack in the bedroom. And Charlie
saves the day.
Swoon, saves the day and calms her down. And they're about to start, like getting at it, their mouths again, 63% in, and then the phone interrupts again, and then, that she ends up Libby's been hot and cold this entire time. She's like, I need time. And she runs off, and then she's gone for 4 hours, and she's back and forth, back and forth. We end up coming to find out that she is closing on a property to move down there with her husband. Her husband just got a job
in Asheville,
down in Asheville or whatever, very close to
Sunshine Falls.
Yeah, Sunshine Falls, and that's a huge point of contention that Nora does not know about yet. But Libby's been doing all this behind her back, and then we get to the 66% in, they go to the library to finally get some editing work done on the book, and I call it library almost labia slam. And
oh my god!
and they almost bone in the library, and then they're like, "Oh, we can't do this here." And it's like, I was like, "Who's thinking about race car beds?" Because they don't have anywhere private to go and
she's
fool around.
Sharing the Airbnb with her sister, and he sleeps in a.
And they start talking about wanting to go down on each other, and I'm like, it can't really be considered dirty talk because they're having an actual conversation while they're getting hot and heavy, and I was like, all right, but Libby, we find out Libby's been calling law offices. Nora thinks she's looking at divorce
attorneys.
It's actually about kindergartens for the kids. There's a lot of false, narratives that Nora's putting in her head about what the fuck is actually going on. Yeah. And
which they need to be communicating, but they're purposefully not.
They finally sleep under the stars, and they actually Charlie talks about having a sex dream about the green M&M, and I'm like,
that was funny.
I get it. Again, I get it.
Yeah, that's probably not. He's probably not alone in having that sex dream.
One of my favorite Charlie lines was talking about Papa Squats. He goes, "It's one of those places that sounds like they'll definitely give you diarrhea, while it really only might give you diarrhea."
Yeah.
And then Libby ends up passing out while they're walking, or to go to dinner or something.
Yeah, she
ends up having low iron in her blood,
anemic
from the pregnancy, and she never. And this was something that had happened to her before that she never told Nora about. So now Nora's feeling even more isolated. And then we find out, shocker, both the girls have been, vegetarian for almost a decade, and we find out that Libby's been eating meat for the last 4 years. She loves Whoppers,
BK Whoppers.
She's like, you just unironically called it BK.
She's like, I've already Googled, the closest one is 45 minutes from here.
And Nora was like, you tricked me into being a vegetarian for a decade,
and you gave it up and didn't tell me. So her episode of the hospital, and then is kind of a catalyst for them finally communicating. And so I know that this is going to go out of order, but the Libby and the Nora storyline, essentially, the hospital thing happens. Libby kind of is realizing okay, I've been keeping a lot from you. So she's going to start sharing more of what's going on. And so she ends up taking Nora to this house that she has purchased, and it said I think that Brendan and I are kind of done with New York. We're going to move down here and make this town our home. So
to
this past 3 weeks or 4 weeks has been really a sales pitch to you
to get you to love it,
to get you to love this town, and Dream World, come with us. But otherwise, just accept that this is what we need to do for us and our family. And
we quickly find out that Charlie's not going back either. Right around this time, she finds out Charlie's not going back. Her sister's moving down, and she's having a full-on meltdown about this.
Because really, her only person is Libby. I mean, she really doesn't have, there's no other family outside of Libby, and she doesn't seem to have a ton of friends back in New York, or a huge support system outside of Libby, really. So, because she works so much, yada, yada. So, she's really spiraling. And so just to close the loop on Libby, and they have this huge fight where they're but a lot comes out in this fight, and they start to make up overnight, but it takes a while. And so then she eventually says well, I wanted to be an editor, but I didn't take the job because I was trying to support you. And Libby's well, I haven't been happy in a long time. I really want to make this move. the story does seamlessly come together, which we're going to ruin it, and we need to backtrack and make sure we touch on the sex scene. But the big one sex scene in this book. But basically, Libby moves down. The kids, like Brendan and the kids, the girls come down and they like start to figure out how their life is going to work, and then. Because of Libby's checklist, one of their things was they wanted to save a local business, and they decided to save Charlie's bookshop, his family's bookshop. So they throw this big fundraiser
and get Dusty to come in and do a personal appearance
over the screen. They get her to zoom in, but yes, it's all about Dusty's book that's set there, and so the town is like, so excited about it. So I don't know if it's because I've read it twice, and I don't know if I saw this coming. This is your second time reading it too, right? I couldn't remember if I knew this because I already read it or if I could guess this, but it closed the loop really seamlessly of like, oh, Libby's moving down there with her family. They're helping save the bookstore. Of course, Libby's going to start working at the bookstore. So then that frees Charlie up to be with Nora, which we can close their loop. But like Libby and Nora's
I'm pretty
story,
sure the first time reading it, I remembered that because this entire time, even before the book, I was like, I knew that he was going to go back again to New York, and that he met her in New York again, and that the sister took it over. Like I knew that from like almost the beginning of the book. Again, I was like, oh, it triggered something in my brain even before I knew he was working at the bookstore. I was like, oh yeah, there's that bookstore. She's gonna save that, and then she takes it over as manager or whatever. But after their knockdown drag out fight, that's when our first big sex scene happens. 82%, which is very far in. I mean, the kissing scene happened adequately far, into the book. 28%, not bad, but 82% is for a sex scene. Bookshop boner bonanza is what I call that one. And
the lights, there's a storm, the lights go out, they build a fire, and then they fuck.
And it's pretty spicy,
It's a good open door scene, but there's so much love. They love each other.
and then she tells the reason to Charlie why she never stays over anywhere, and why she can't sleep anywhere but her own bed. And 85%, they after the emotional golden shower, it's followed by some very sweet sex, which was a little bit more closed door, and then Libby's family shows up. They the
next day, not while they're having sex.
Yeah, not while they're having sex. And she runs to Charlie for comfort. She ends up spending the night with him, and eventually, but chooses to stay with him. Yeah. No, that's afterwards. We're a little bit out of order. They have some sleepy morning grinder sex after that, about 89% in.
Okay,
and then Libby and Nora finally talk on the front steps of the house, like they should have done at the fucking beginning of this entire book. But where would we be if they actually did that?
Exactly.
She wants Nora to move. She doesn't want to. It fucking sucks. The power of it. Whatever. And Charlie finally says we should try and do long distance, even though they both know that it's never going to work.
We need to write our own ending.
And she says no, and he goes, well, I don't accept that. I want your notes by Friday, because they've been editing this book the whole time. So he's like, I want your notes by Friday. Mm-hmm. And then they have the big, like they keep on making plans about what they're going to do if they were to stay in this relationship that they both kind of know is not going to happen. And then the big bookstore gala happens, and they're dancing and having an emotional talk. And then she kind of goes, well, I'm not good at goodbyes, so I'm leaving. And just turns around and walks away.
Flying out in the morning. See ya.
And has a pretty real talk with Charlie's dad on the way out. And she's like, I don't want him here. And she's like, yeah, you're making him fucking feel like it too. Mm-hmm. She's like, give him what he wants, and tell him that you need his help. You're making him feel like even more of an outsider than he already is. And you're his dad. You should be. Oh
yeah, she does kind of tell the dad off. Of him.
Yeah, and then she finally moves back, and it's time for Libby to make the move a couple months later down to Sunshine Falls. And that scene outside of the fucking apartment when they're saying goodbye to each other is like, I'm not crying, you're crying. I'm like, it's like, it was pretty fucking emotional.
It was well written.
It was very well written. And
did you cry?
No, but I could see myself getting a little misty.
Kittens.
And then it's a couple months after that or whatever else, and it's the mom's
12 at 12, the mom's birthday.
Birthday or whatever. She's going to her favorite bookstore, and Libby's like, "Hey, happy birthday! I sent you a present." She's like, "We don't get presents for mom's birthday."
Yeah.
She's like, "Well, I sent you one anyway. Text me when it gets there." And it's like, shocker, it's Charlie. And
it's Charlie at the bookstore.
And then he's like, "Be my shark," and proposes to her, and it's like, okay, that was a little hokey for the rest of it was, so well done, but it was still pretty great.
What was the low point?
I mean, the
like
low
her
point
moving back to New York. Like I don't feel like there was not. It didn't feel like there was a real low point with Charlie, which I loved. I loved that there was no like stupid miscommunication where like.
I mean, arguably the whole book was a low point with her sister.
Yeah.
And once her and Charlie kind of, they're on again, off again throughout it. And as soon as that he's not moving back, I think that's when you could argue that the low point kind of comes in, because she realizes that they're on a clock. Like, the relationship is gonna end. And I think the low point is probably starts at her leaving him on the dance floor and bottoms out around when Libby leaves, but also that's within like 15 pages of the end of the book. So
the end happens pretty like that all comes together really quickly. Like, oh, Libby's going to take over the bookstore and I'm going to move back to New York and be with you. And we're going to spend holidays in, the Sunshine Falls.
Yeah. And it was a pretty quick turnaround on the ending and the resolutions and everything else. For everything else being so well paced throughout it, I kind of felt like the ending was a little rushed, but not terribly. It all came together pretty well and got tied up in a nice, pretty neat fucking bow at the end of it.
Yeah. Would you recommend this book?
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is like we talked about with other books. This is just a good book. This is not a smut book, per se. It is a romance book, yes, but not a smutty book. But it is absolutely a good book. On any metric.
She's a phenomenal writer
on any metric.
Any metric. She is a phenomenal writer. The way that she like crafts story and pulls you along, and like I don't know if we guessed the ending with Libby taking over the bookstore, because that's who we are. Like we are always like guessing the ending, or if it was like just such a natural. Love.
She has a ton of other great books too. I mean, she's pretty prolific, and she has a lot of other great titles.
Yeah,
and looking forward to her newest, which neither of us have read yet.
Yeah, something Big Beautiful Life or something. But no, I loved this book. I feel like I've been recommending this book to people. I love it. If you haven't read it, please do. Sorry, we just ruined the ending for you.
Check out her entire oeuvre.
Yeah, of all of her books, though, this is my favorite. I thought the character. I think I just loved. I'm like literally sitting here next to my Peloton. Like I loved just her references.
The Peloton comes up multiple times.
Yeah. It is not a clothes hanger for Nora. She uses it, and I love how much they talk about books, because I love books. So I think it really hit well. Like the specifics of this book hit well. I love all of her books, but there's a couple that I just don't really relate to the characters very well. And like, they're really well written. I liked the book, but it didn't hit. This one hit.
Funny story, happy place, beach read. I really enjoyed as well, but I would say this is probably my favorite out of all of them. And
in my opinion.
Yeah. And do you know what we are reading next week?
I do. I think only because it's on the library. Is it Idea of You?
It is.
Yes.
By?
No idea. Oh, No, I don't know.
Robin Lee.
Anne Hathaway.
Idea of You by Robin Lee is coming up next week.
Have you read this?
I've not. This is a virginal reading for me.
Oh my God. This is another fanfic expansion book.
Of what?
Not Harry Potter. One Direction.
The band?
Yes. I think I'm almost positive.
Wait, is this the one where the 40-year-old woman dates the like 17-year-old or 22-year-old pop star?
Uh-huh. Sure is. It's so good.
I may have read the description of this book. Usually I don't do that. Usually I just go in cold. If the cover's good, I fucking read it.
Well, this cover's not your cup of tea. It's a
I have not
human.
I've not looked at the cover yet.
Take a look. It's a human. You might not like it. It is a woman. So maybe you'll be more open to it. But anyway, yes, I am very excited for you to read this book. Yeah. And there is a movie, but don't watch the movie before you read. You have to read first because the book is actually quite different. Or the movie is actually quite different. I see her with the glasses on the front. Yes, yeah. The sunglasses.
Looking over the top of them.
That's right.
All right, we've already talked about how spicy would you rate the next book?
Idea of You?
Yeah.
If memory serves, I would say medium plus.
Okay.
I think there's some spice.
Some spicy burrito.
There's some spicy burrito. But again, I read it a long time ago, so my mind might be failing me. I'm excited to read it again. I plowed through this book originally. I think it's on audio now. When I read it originally, it was only on Kindle. There was just ebook. There wasn't I don't even think you get a hard copy. And I read it in a day.
Real hard copy.
The Kindle is hard, but it's not a hard copy. But yeah, I read it in a day. So I'll be curious to listen to it. And all
right, well,
you read a lot of books in a day.
Yeah.
So.
Coming up next week is Idea of You by Robin Lee. If you're generally enjoying our bullshit, please hit that rate, review, subscribe buttons. Generally shower us with praise. Thank you for listening, and tune in next week, smutters.
Thank you for listening. Goodbye. Stay smutty.
Stay smutty.